You can actually get started on Sorare with as little as 20 quid at the minute. Here are my top tips. So the first thing you can do is don't play fantasy, just flip cards. See yourself as a trader. Target injured players, out of form players, number 2 goalkeepers who might get the starting spot someday, under 23 players, players with low averages, players that could be eligible for Underdog that have good fixtures coming up. If you don't know what Underdog means, basically players with low averages over the last 15 games. Typically 50 below, 40 below, that's kind of where you're looking. Here's a historic example of this in action. On the 11th of March earlier this year, Florian Wirtz's limited card was trading for around €1,200. Just a couple of days later, he picked up a bad injury in a game and his price plummeted to a low of about Just a few days later, he picked up a really bad injury in a game and his price plummeted to a low of around €470. And his price plummeted to a low of around €470. Over the course of the next week, as the panic died down and people realised Florian Wirtz is a talent for the next 5-10 years, not just the next month, people were buying him back and the price was rising. And just 2 weeks later, his card sold for almost 850 quid, just under double the money. This isn't going to happen every time, but here's an example of an injury trade gone right. And here's another example of a backup goalkeeper taking the number 1 spot. An added bonus and an added explosion happens when they're an under 23-year-old player. Fabian de Keizer at Utrecht was selling for about 20 quid in early January this year. In a press conference, the manager came out and said that he would be number 1. And his price over 10x and hit almost 300 quid. Now I'm showing you best case scenario, so don't get your hopes up, but it can happen, and it's just to show you that the proof is in the pudding. These types of players can be good flipping opportunities, but obviously it can go the other way. So if you're starting on 20 quid, you absolutely have to use an affiliates link when you sign up. I'm an affiliate, of course I'd say that, but it's because you get a free card once you buy your first 5, and when you're operating on a small budget, every little helps. I sound like Tesco. So if you click that link and sign up, you'll get the free card once you buy your first 5 from auction, and I will get paid as an affiliate, and it'll really help me continue to bring content like this to you. So thank you in advance if you do click it for me. Second thing you should consider doing with your 20 quid is targeting the academy. In the academy, you can use 3 of the commons that you were given for free at the start of the game, or commons that you've won through the casual league. But in the academy, you're also allowed to use up to 2 limiteds that you have actually bought. In the academy, your limiteds get a bonus of 40%, so if you can pick up 2 limiteds with high peak score potential, you can really propel yourself up the leaderboard. And if you're able to break 440 points, you'll get a tier 2 limited. If you break 390 points, you'll get a tier 3 limited. 300 points, you're going to get a star tier 0 common, and it goes right the way down. Now, it's important with the limiteds you buy that you target guys with high peak scores. You do not want guys who shoot 50 every week. You want guys who shoot 16 or 100. You want the peak score players, because it's the peak scores that are going to win you limited cards that you can sell for cash or use in other tournaments. There's a lot of strategy about who you should target, and later this week I'm going to give you 10 players you could buy with your first 20 quid. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss that. If you're on a slightly higher budget than the 20 quid, or if you're insanely good at scouting, Underdog could be an option for you. Underdog only requires 4 limiteds at time of recording. The goalkeeper spot is where you'll put your common, because they've less upside in terms of scoring, and they're the most expensive limited cards to buy. So let's forget about the goalkeeper. You can feasibly buy 4 limited cards who'll be eligible for Underdog for somewhere between 20, 30, 40, 50 quid, somewhere in that region. And obviously the better you are at scouting, the cheaper it'll be. So I don't want to put an exact figure on it. But again, the key here is pick 4 players with low averages who can bang. Don't pick guys who have a low average because they hit 43 every week. Pick guys who have a low average because they hit 20 most weeks, but some weeks they actually do get assists and stuff and they're going to shoot 100. It can take a bit of digging. You do need the stars to align, but it's not impossible. So that's the third tip. The fourth tip and the next few tips actually are the types of players that you might be able to target to get on this sort of budget. So first up, we have older players. People are scared of old players. If they're 33, 34, people don't want them. Now, I did a very quick search. I haven't looked into the contract situations, injury situations, personal situations of any of these players, but I'm just going to show you an example of old players who have good scores who are under 20 quid. David Silva, the hero from Man City at Real Sociedad now, selling at the minute for around 15 quid for his limited, and he has been getting minutes recently and he can score really well because of how creative he is. Alexandru Eperanu, I'm going for that pronunciation anyway, plays for Başakşehir in Turkey. His limited at the time of recording will set you back about 15 quid. He's 35 years old, he hasn't played the last couple of games, so I don't know what the story is, but he has a lot of green scores. Akiro Ayanega at Kawasaki Frontale is worth about 15 quid as well, and he has an average score of 75 over his last 5 games, which is just shy of Lionel Messi. So if you're up for the risk, older players can be be a good play. The fifth point is players with dubious contract situations. Where there is uncertainty and doubt and fear, there is opportunity. But there is also a hell of a lot of risk. If someone's been linked to go to an uncovered league on Sorare, or if they're old and looking like they might be out of contract, this uncertainty can lead to people listing the card to the market. And particularly at limited, when there's so much liquidity, people will constantly undercut each other and the price can plummet. If you take a chance and you think it's all just smoke with no fire, you can get handsomely rewarded. I'm going to show you an example of this. Umar Solé, the under-23 centre-back at Salzburg, is one of the best under-23 defenders on the platform. Towards the end of June, he was linked away to Torino in Italy, and this would have meant leaving the most dominant team in Austria by some distance and going to a mid to lower table team in Italy. On this news, people absolutely shat the bed. From trading at around 200 quid at limited, he plummeted to about 60 quid. But just a month later, when it was clear he was staying, which is relatively short term, it's only a month, his price was back in excess of what it initially was, at about 250 quid. And if you really want to feel good about yourself and cringe a little, just have a look at it at Super Rare. I actually bought the card for about 5 grand on the 9th of June. So on the 22nd of June, when this card sold for 1500 quid, it's safe to say I was feeling a little bit miffed about it all. But I didn't panic, I sat on my hands, didn't press the button, and within 2 months, he's already sold for 7.5 grand at Super Rare. So that whole story is just to tell you about how uncertainty around a player's future can lead to massive opportunity, but there's also a hell of a lot of risk. The sixth tip is, you're probably coming into Sorare, you might be into European football, you're probably into the biggest leagues in the world. But if you love stats, if you love data, and if you love scouting and digging, if you can buy into the likes of the American leagues, South America, North America, and the Asian leagues, the value there is way better than it is in Europe, particularly if you're targeting Academy, Underdog, All-Star Limited or Under 23 Limited. In these divisions, these cards can score as well as their European counterparts. The Europeans are so much more expensive because they're household names. Everyone wants the shiny guy that they know and love. But if you want to find the diamond in the dirt, you can get guys who score just as well for a fraction of the cost. Just have Google Translate at the ready and get ready to go balls deep into your research. Another tip is to buy off-season players. If you're buying players at the peak of the hype early in their season, everyone's looking at them then. Typically, as players come towards the end of a season and they're out of season, their price will dip because people lose interest. And then as the season comes back, their price will rise. Now, timing this can be very, very hard, and you'll have to do your own digging. But if we look at the last 2 years I've been on the platform, typically around 6 weeks before the end of a season, that's when people start selling because they know it's come to the end of the season. They think everyone's going to sell. They want to be clever and get out before the end of the season. So maybe 6 to 8 weeks before the end of a season. And that could be different depending where on the world you are. That could be when you see your opportunity. Equally, in some of the European leagues like Austria, for example, or Russia, there can be long winter breaks. And you can almost treat these like their own little mini off seasons. And you can have a good opportunity there. And maybe even this year with the World Cup, players who aren't World Cup eligible might have their own off season of sorts in the middle of the year. So this will be a really interesting winter, again full of lots of opportunity for beginners to flip cards. Here's a few things you can do for free that give you a chance at winning cards. So the first one is Twitter giveaways. Lots of accounts do Twitter giveaways. If you have a Twitter account, or if you don't, set one up and just keep an eye on the Sorare hashtag. People are doing giveaways all the time. Now be very careful. Some of these will be people absolutely lying just to get followers and subscribers. I do giveaways occasionally. If you follow me at John Nellis, you'll see any of those that I put up. But Twitter giveaways can be one way to get Sorare cards for free. There are side games you can enter for free. Some of these you will need some cards to play, but I'll tell you the names of the sites anyway. There's the Sorare Academy where you can play for free. There's Sorare Data, which might have some side games. And there's also Sorare Mega, which can be good fun, albeit you will need cards to really compete there. And the last tip, and now honestly, I genuinely believe, hand on heart, you have a better chance at winning a card here at the minute than you do in the casual leagues or you do in the Academy. Enter my giveaways. I give away every limited card I win on this YouTube channel. I've given away over already 40 cards this year, including Marco Reus, an under 23 goalkeeper, a legend, and a ton of others. And this week, actually, I'm on course to get a tier 1 under 23, which will be nice as well. If you want to enter every single giveaway on this YouTube channel, head over to this video now and make sure you tune in for live streams where I do bonus giveaways. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll hopefully see you around here a little bit more.